Welcome to the Office of the Leader of the Opposition press conference for April 13, 2023. We do apologize for our late start today. Let me introduce my panel. From my right, there is none other than the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Aubrey C. Norton, Member of Parliament. To his right is Mr. Jeremy Figueroa, Member of Parliament, and to his right is Mr. Elson Lowe, economist. Welcome. Today's press statement will be read in three parts, and we will begin with the reading from the Leader of the Opposition.
Samville residents demand that government do their roads. In a recent visit to the community of Samville, Kurukuru, we had the opportunity to walk around the community and experience firsthand the terrible state of the roads in the community. The roads are impassable, and residents are forced to pay high fares to get in to the community. And in many cases, having paid the high fares, they have to come out of their vehicles and walk because of the impassable state of the roads. Many citizens expressed concern that though they were promised by the government to have the roads done, nothing has happened. Citizens complain that it is very difficult for the children who have to walk to school and call on the government to ensure that the roads are done. They noted that while the government is redoing roads that have already been done, the roads in Samville were never done. In addition, residents lamented the fact that apart from the bad roads, there is no electricity in a large part of the community, and demand that the government ensures that they are afforded this basic necessity. Investment in social development is an investment in economic development and must not be seen as solely public consumption. The PNCR and the coalition are the Party for Social Protection and Inclusive Prosperity. We reject the PPP's approach to economic development. Several weeks ago, Senior Minister with Responsibility for Finance, Dr. Ashni Singh, stated with great pride that the PPP government made a conscious decision to shift expenditure from public consumption of goods and services to a greater focus on government investment in infrastructure. He illustrated this by noting that in the 2023 budget, almost half of the 782 billion budgeted, or 49.6%, is being devoted to public infrastructure investment. The minister reportedly justified this focus as necessary to ensure that the government could address historic infrastructure impediments to long-term economic growth. He contrasted this stance with that of the coalition government by pointing out that in 2019, the previous government spent only 22.7% on public investment and the remainder on public consumption. We have several fundamental issues with the PPP's approach to economic development, which we wish to highlight to draw contrast with how we will approach development. Firstly, it is Jurassic economics thinking to consider spending on infrastructure, important as it is, as the only form of public investment for economic growth. New development planning, backed up by decades of research and practice, considers what was once termed public consumption as actual public investment, given its essence and impact. Therefore, government spending in such realms as health, education, crime prevention, child care, nutrition support, and food security, and other social programs is no longer mischaracterized as public consumption of goods and services, but as investments, because such expenditure in ensuring and enhancing the quality of life of people drives economic growth and development. Take a few simple examples. It is an established fact that worldwide, that government spending on a full-fledged school feeding program is significantly raises school attendance and education uptake and reduce malnourishment and stunted growth among children. Such spending produces economic and social returns by producing a healthy workforce when these children mature into adults and by reducing short to long-term healthcare costs. Likewise, government expenditure on early childhood care and education programs leads to higher female participation in the economy and better social outcomes for children, all of which redound to the benefit of the economy over the short to long term. The PPP is totally bereft of this understanding and thinking. This is so because the PPP puts corruption and favors to itself family and friends and favorites first, rather than the interests of the people. Secondly, the government, in claiming that its infrastructure spending is intended to expand the productive capacity of the economy, seems to believe all such spending will have that effect. Not so. Simply investing in infrastructure is insufficient. Instead, investments for economic development must be directed at infrastructure that has transformative outcomes, such as reducing regional disparities, improving market access, and opening up new investment opportunities. We shared clear ideas on this issue in the Leader of the Opposition address to Parliament in the 2023 budget. Therefore, repairs and maintenance of and modest improvement to existing infrastructure, though necessary, will not significantly expand the productive capacity of the non-oil economy. Nor will the infrastructure spending that wastes tens of billions of dollars through rampant overspending, corruption, and channeling of funds to PPP friends, families, and favorites will succeed. Instead, a coalition government will catalyze development through infrastructure projects that A, will open new agricultural lands and untap mineral, forestry, and ecotourism resources. B, will provide access countrywide to cheap and reliable water, telecommunications, and electricity. And C, will increase transport interconnectivity between the coast and the hinterland and within the hinterland itself to promote national integration and reduce regional disparities and unequal access to services and opportunities. Most of the major projects today that can increase economic capacity were initiated by the coalition government. Projects such as the Gas to Shore Energy Project, which the present government is mismanaging. The Linden Lethem Road and the New Demerara Harbor Bridge. The PPP is yet to produce an original, cohesive plan on the use of public infrastructure for economic development. Third, we take issue with the PPP's mentality of seeing what it terms public consumption as a matter devoid of any moral imperative and legitimate expectation. The PPP does not understand and will never that it is the moral obligation of a government to use all available resources to ensure all citizens live comfortably. It does not understand and never will that this is also the legitimate expectation of citizens in signing on to the social contract. Ending poverty and lifting living standards do not have to be long-term fixes, as the PPP believes. Bringing prosperity to ordinary Guyanese does not have to travel the long meandering paths, as the PPP believes. Poverty is no longer acceptable in Guyana. Several oil-rich economies have eradicated poverty and lift living standards in short time spans. We as the next government intend to do so as a moral responsibility. A new coalition government will therefore directly invest the largest share of the national budget in lifting the quality of life of people. For us, investing in people is both an economic lever and a moral obligation. We will adopt a bottom-up, middle-out economic development approach by putting low to middle income people first. The more people who can contribute to the economy and fairly benefit from it, the more prosperous we all are. We therefore believe that economic growth and development must be inclusive, where no citizen is excluded by virtue of poverty, deprivation, unemployment and underemployment, low income, no savings, social marginalization, and discrimination. The more people participate as workers, producers, consumers, investors, and citizens, the better are the chances of building a vibrant and prosperous society and economy for all. Further, we remain committed to the core belief that each household must be guaranteed a minimum livable income through a combination of wages, profits, dividends, cash transfers, subsidies, tax breaks, etc. We remain committed to our proposals on social protection, such as early childhood care and education, rent and utility assistance, and free tertiary education with stipend. The bottom-up, middle-out approach to growth and development is more than a slogan, but a fundamentally different way of thinking about the economy. We are the party for social protection. We are the party for inclusive prosperity.
Thank you. And the other half of the statement will be read by MP Jermaine Figure.
Okay, thank you. On behalf of the party, I would like to extend congratulations to all of Guyana's national athletes who participated in the just concluded 50th Carifta Games held in Nassau, Bahamas. All will agree that our athletes' stellar performance under worrying and questionable levels of management from the Athletics Association of Guyana are most noteworthy and commendable. It goes without question that the president and executives of the Athletics Association of Guyana, and by extension the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports, owe this nation an explanation to the levels of ineptitude and poor management of our country's sports ambassadors. This is woefully unacceptable. An investigation should be launched and its findings should be made public, given the frequency of similar circumstances. I call on the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports to hone its responsibility and exercise a stronger policy oversight over all sports disciplines to ensure that our athletes are given nothing but the best of treatment home and abroad because they deserve it. I would like to commend the newly executive of the Ghana Olympic Association for the leadership they have shown in this unfortunate situation. And I'm even more persuaded that they are ready and prepared to work on our athletes' behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. The other half of the statement will be read by Mr. Elson Law.
Thank you very much, Shanika. GCOM chairperson Claudette Singh persists in her lack of impartiality and objectivity. GCOM chairperson Claudette Singh continues to chair the commission and cast her votes in a manner that, to quote Commissioner Vincent Alexander, brings into question GCOM's fitness for purpose as an impartial electoral body. Recent appointments of senior staff have again exposed Claudette Singh's incapacity and unwillingness to ensure GCOM can win the trust and confidence of the Guyanese public. Instead of seeking to foster compromise and consensus among GCOM commissioners, she has allowed the tyranny of the majority to prevail. She has used her casting vote to override or ignore well-established administrative laws, rules, and principles. She has turned the commission into a PUP stooge instead of the independent entity that the Constitution envisages and the citizens expect. The recent appointment of Mr. Aniel Giddings as the Deputy Chief Elections Officer is a case in point. Mr. Giddings' selection and appointment could not have been possible but for Chairperson Claudette Singh, joining with the PUP commissioners to manipulate and disfigure the employment process. The records show he was not the most qualified candidate, nor, worse, did he even meet the qualification criteria. Yet the GCOM chair voted for him to be selected and appointed. As Commissioner Vincent Alexander publicly stated, this is the third time in succession that GCOM has contrived to appoint a candidate who has not met the mandatory requirement. The other cases are the current CEO and the ACEO. In the latter case, the position of ACEO was re-advertised even though at least 4 of the original applicants met the requirements and were shortlisted on both occasions. However, Claudette Singh colluded with the PUP commissioners to allow a retiree who had not previously applied to get the job. The Guyanese public calls on Claudette Singh to explain these and her other disgraceful acts, all of which favor the PPP. She must stand before the people of Guyana and fully account to them. She must show integrity and decency. She must restore public trust in her stewardship and in the commission. Failing to do any of these, she must go. The Guyana Chronicle, spreading fake news about the opposition. It is one mischief for the state media to be a shameless mouthpiece of the PPP. It is another mischief for the state media not to cover the statements and activities of the opposition. It is quite another mischief for the state media to spread propaganda and fake news about the opposition. The Guyana Chronicle newspaper is guilty on 3 counts. The newspaper recently reported, for example, that the leader of the opposition was denied an opportunity to speak at the Bartica Regatta when nothing could be further from the truth. This and other fabrications highlight what passes as journalism at the Guyana Chronicle. In addition, the newspaper publishes the wild responses of Second Vice President Jagdeo to our press statements without reporting fairly or at all on what we actually stated. And, as we have pointed out before, the answers we give to the persistent questions from the Chronicle journalists at our press conferences do not see the light of day in the newspapers. But even in asking for more coverage from the Chronicle newspaper, we must be careful what we ask for, given its penchant for mischief, bias, and lies. It is no secret that the negative coverage of the opposition comes at a cost to the newspaper. It has lost its credibility. People see it for what it is, the bedmate of the Mirror newspaper. No wonder that that circulation of the newspaper remains low, even in PPP strongholds.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I will open the floor for questions on the press statement, and as is customary, you do so by the raising of hand, and you will state your media houses. All right, the first hand I see is Mr. Jevon Vickery.
Good afternoon, everybody. I don't know if Mr. Lowe or the opposition leader can answer this question. Based on that Chronicle report, can Mr. Norton or Mr. Lowe say exactly what might have given the indication of you not speaking at this event or maybe speaking to persons? What exactly happened?
First of all, let me say that we were invited, and as leader of the opposition, I was invited to a 9 o'clock opening ceremony. It had nothing to do with the opposition leader not speaking. We were there, we interacted with people. Up until about 1:45, the opening ceremony did not begin. If the Chronicle wanted to report properly, they would have reported that the Prime Minister and delegation were not there on time. And even when the lap of honor was done, only the leader of the opposition and his team participated in the lap of honor. I gathered from some sources that the Prime Minister apparently expected them to wait until he comes, even though it was a 9 o'clock start, and that occurred at 10. When I returned from the lap of honor, we proceeded to be there, meet with people, etc. The organizers of the activity knew that we had rented a boat and that we were coming back to Georgetown to go to the highway to Samville, to the people who we had promised that we will visit them. And I thought at the time that the residents of Samville had a legitimate concern, and as leader of the opposition, I was obligated to return. So I informed them that I was leaving at 1:45 to get to the boat by 1. By that time, my understanding was that because there was not the opening in the morning and more than 4 events had already taken place, there was going to be no opening ceremony. And I left. And so it was not a case of me being refused to speak, etc. In fact, I thought I was lenient when the sponsors asked me if I was prepared to wait a little for the Prime Minister to come, and I was disposed to do that. Whatever confusion was created by Kwame McCoy and company when they arrived, I am not privy to the details.
Thank you.
Just to follow up, Mr. Norton, I'm sure there was the program. So just to confirm, your name was not on the program to speak. You were there rather as for an appearance as opposition leader?
That is totally untrue. My name was on the program. And you can take a copy of the program from them. And may I point out to you, the person that delivered the first set of trophies was the leader of the opposition, who was a formal part of the program. The Chronicle cannot help itself. It is essentially a mouthpiece for the PPP, and it specializes in fabricating stories to achieve PPP objectives.
Thank you. Any other questions on the press statement? Miss Marsha?
Hi, good morning.
Good
Sarah Marshall from News Source. My question is directed to Mr. Lowe regarding the Ghana Elections Commission. Sir, you spoke about the appointments. Given your concern, the party's concern, is the party going to formally write the commission again on the matter, or seek a meeting to express its concerns, given the recent appointment? And what is the likely impact from where the party stands on the upcoming local government elections and future elections? I also have a question for Mr. Segura, but I'll ask that subsequently.
I believe the leader of the opposition has some remarks on that point.
First of all, you ask how it will impact. Well, you know, the PPP is not a democratic government, and so nothing impacts except brute force and ignorance, whether it's their action or their opponents. So that should take care of the impact. We will act. Commissioner Alexander has already put it in the public domain, and we will do what it takes to ensure that GCOM gets proper personnel generally, because as it stands, they are taking political hacks and fooling GCOM. And if you're talking about impact, one impact is that elections will never be credible in Guyana once you have a commission that is controlled by the People's Progressive Party.
Thank you.
Just a follow-up, sir. Mr. Norton said the party, Mr. Alexander would have spoken about it in the press. Mr. Alexander would have expressed several concerns leading up to this appointment. You said the party will do what it takes. Could you just break that down to me? What exactly do you mean by that?
There are always legal and other options.
To follow up, sir, can you say what are some of the options you're considering? I know you said they're legal and all the options, but that's kind of vague. What exactly you're looking at this point in time?
I continue to say to the press, when you're a political party, if you telegraph what you're doing, I mean, I understand that Chronicle has become the mouthpiece of the People's Progressive Party, and therefore they will want to ask questions so you could say what you're doing, and Chronicle will be allowed the government will be allowed to act. We are going to take whatever decisions we need and act on them, but at this stage, we are not prepared to say to you what is it we will do.
Sir, I just a point of correction. My name is Svetlana Marshall, and I'm a journalist attached to News Source. I'm not a mouthpiece of the government, and my president.
No, I think you missed what I'm saying. I'm saying the Chronicle is a mouthpiece. And once I put out their information, then what happens is the government prepares for it. Now, you are from an independent, I know you who you are. I'm saying to you, at this stage, we're not prepared to do that, because what happens, if you observe what is happening, you will recognize that an attempt is being made to use the press conferences to get an idea as to where the opposition is going so that the government could act. I'm not necessarily accusing you as an individual of working on behalf of the government, but you do accept that you have Chronicle here, NCN, I don't know if NCN is here, and normally that is what happens when you do that.
A follow-up question to Mr. Figueroa. Mr. Figueroa, could you give us an update on the various sporting facilities in the Region 10 since you're here? I know that works were ongoing on the Mackenzie Sports Club ground as well as the synthetic track. Just an update on those facilities.
Thank you for your question, Svetlana. I believe both facilities are moving at a snail's pace. We believe that in particularly the synthetic track, it should have been completed already. And the time this track started, the athletes in Region 10 should have been using it to prepare for the recently concluded Carifta Games. With regards to the Mackenzie Sports Club ground, a lot of concerns have been arisen by the people of Region 10, particularly because of a posting His Excellency would have placed on his Facebook page, indicating that the Mackenzie Sports Club ground is being upgraded to facilitate an international ICC standard cricket pitch. That is most concerning for us, because I would have asked several questions pertaining to the Mackenzie Sports Club ground in the House. And I specifically took the opportunity to inform the minister, who was boasting that they are bringing a multi-purpose facility at the Mackenzie Sports Club ground, to inform him that the Mackenzie Sports Club ground has always been a multi-purpose facility, and more so over the years, it became the epicenter for most of this disciplines in the community. A lot of the athletics that Region 10 is known for, and football, those activities were mostly hosted by the Mackenzie Sports Club ground. So to hear now that the president is saying, and it was also shared on the Minister of Culture, Youth and Sports page, the ministry, that ICC standard cricket pitch is being placed there. It is of concern for the residents, the people of Region 10, who are particularly known for athletics, swimming, and football. We are very much concerned with this new revelation, because in the House, when the question was asked, it was specifically said, and it was very pellucid, that the club will maintain all of the disciplines that it used to host, and that is the direction the development would be taken. And now to hear, and more so to read on the president's page, no less a person than the president, saying that the ground will be upgraded to a ICC standard cricket pitch, it is concerning, and we need clarity I would have also asked that for the image of what will be coming to the Mackenzie Sports Club to be placed in a public space, as was done with the synthetic track. A diagram of what it will look like was placed at the 5 corner. I even suggested that to the PS for him to indicate that to the minister, that the people of Linden is most deserving to know what is going to be placed at their facility. This is a people's facility. The club is owned by the people of the membership of the Mackenzie Sports Club ground. And it is alarming, it is concerning, because the club in itself would have morphed into a community facility. It does not only cater for sporting activities, social events as well. So it is now a part of the community. So now to hear that the synthetic, the ground is now going to be facilitating cricket, and the question of football, the question of athletics, and all of the other disciplines that the club used to cater for more than 50 years. We have no clear direction, and the ministry is somewhat hesitant to give information, and more so to even put out a diagram, a pictorial image of what this facility would look like. So there is raging public protests with regards to those comments and display on the president's Facebook page.
Just to follow up, are you saying that because it's going to have this international standard for cricket to be played, that other discipline cannot, that other sports activity cannot be facilitated in on the ground? That's what you're alleging. And secondly, could you say exactly who owns the ground? Is it NISIL? You just mentioned members, but who really owns the facility?
From my knowledge, it is a community facility. It is a members facility. And I'm not alleging that other sports discipline won't be played at the Mackenzie Sports Club ground. What I'm saying that the ministry has to provide the residents with information that they seek. Because I would have asked that question based on the concerns of the residents of the community in Parliament, and it was relayed to me that the Mackenzie Sports Club ground will remain a multi-purpose facility to cater for all of the disciplines. And if it is going to be of ICC standard for cricket, then we need to know if also football would be played, because the leveling of the ground as it is brings into question if a football pitch with FIFA standard could also be accommodated at the Mackenzie Sports Club ground, along with the other disciplines that the club used to cater for, hockey, for example. There's no need for us to continue having athletics competition at the Mackenzie Sports Club ground when we're going to be having a synthetic track at Wisma. So what about football and what about hockey that the club used to cater for? So those are questions we believe needs clarity from the ministry, because it is a concern of the people of Region 10, and I believe they are most deserving of a response, and more so a pictorial image of what the facility would look like on its completion. I don't see why there's a hesitancy by the ministry to put up an image of what the Mackenzie Sports Club ground would eventually look like with this upgrade.
I also would like to add that when you speak to the people in Linden and Region 10, they want the ground to be updated to FIFA standards. Linden plays football. And for the government to come to decide a ground that we use over the years, I played personally football on that ground in the 1970s. Linden plays far more football than cricket. And what Linden people are demanding is that it be upgraded to FIFA standards rather than ICC standards. As it relates to the ownership of it, as far as I know, the Bauxite Company years ago gave that ground to the people of Mackenzie and Linden, and therefore the ground is a community ground. I want to make another point. If the government is so interested in cricket, which is not as popular as football and the other sport in Linden, then what they can do They are spending money right now to upgrade a ground for Kashif and Shanghai to hold an all-black sport, a dance. What they can do if they so care is upgrade that ground to a cricket ground. It is also known that you had this problem in Linden over the years, that because of the size of the ground, the cricket ground ends up always with footballers running on it. And so a lot of times when you want to play cricket, you'll have to close football. And when you want to play football, you'll close cricket. That is a problem over the years, especially in the rainy weather. Now, if the aim is to solve the problem, then rather than spending money on the Mackenzie High School or the YMCA ground, depending on what you want to call it, they should have upgraded that ground to ICC standards so cricket can be played there, which is not very far away, while the other sport, including football, with Mackenzie Sports Club, has always had a strong football club. They also had a cricket club, which has deteriorated over the years. And so the issue here is the government should not be imposing. They should be in consultation with the people in Linden and give them what they want. They do well in athletics. The AP and UAFC giving them a stadium. We are pressuring them to complete it because they seem not to want to. At the Mackenzie Sports Club ground, it should be FIFA standard with hockey and other games being played, and the government can put resources into the Mackenzie High School YMCA ground and upgrade that to an ICC standard rather than focusing on doing it for Kashif and Shanghai to keep a party.
Thank you. I see the hand of Mr. Adam Harris.
A very good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Harris here.
Morning.
Mr. Norton, in your opening presentation, you spoke about hungry children and all of this. I did a mini survey and I found that a large percentage of school children in Georgetown go to school hungry. I also know that toward the end of the last school term, with some help, and I know you're a modest person, I might just say that you organized to feed 50 children of a certain South Georgetown school every day. Sir, is there a school feeding program for secondary school children in the city? Question number one. Has the government paid attention to the number of poor people and hence the number of children who go to school hungry? And the third question is the education minister aware of the level of concentration of the children in the various classes?
All right. Yesterday, I brought a message to the Seventh-day Adventist conference, and I told them that the people with power don't hungry, and the people that hungry don't have power. And so you have a government in which its leadership cannot understand hunger. The children obviously wouldn't be hungry. But a lot of the children in South Georgetown and across the country, not only South Georgetown, I know of a case at Harmony School years ago, a year or two ago, where children just didn't have anything to eat. In most of our speeches to Parliament, we abhor the fact that they are putting so much money into infrastructure at the expense of our people. And don't forget, the allocation of resources is done based on our national budget outside of the corruption. Talk about where it is done legally. And if you look at the allocation of resources, you will see that the intention is not to get rid of poverty and remove children from that hunger list. It's an attempt to put money in the hands of the cronies. And so I believe that there should be a school feeding program. The APNU AFC, we believe that there should be a school feeding program at every level. We identify those children living in poverty and cannot afford a meal and be able to give them at least 2 hot meals per day so that they can perform. I don't gain the impression that the government is concerned about eradicating hunger from school children. The government concern is to be able to use the PR to say, oh, we have a school feeding program. But it is clearly not focused. It is clearly not aimed to achieve the objective that it should be achieving of eradicating hunger, of reducing and finally eradicating poverty. And so I know that the government knows that there are a lot of children that are not getting what they should get, but it is not in the government's interest to change the situation, because that will deprive them of resources for their corruption and personal accumulation. Now, as it relates to class concentration, it is well known that a lot of the classes have more children than teachers, and the government is not doing anything to keep teachers in the fold. And even as they talk about training teachers, it is not in a structured way. And importantly, if you train new teachers, they will take time to get some experience. But I do not believe the government has done an assessment of the amount of children in each region and what amounts of schools we need in which category. The government seems to wake up every day and just, it's like we're building 5 new hospitals. Based on what? Is there an analysis of where these hospitals are needed? What types of treatment are needed there? The government, like I said in my budget, does not have a cohesive plan for anything in this country except to ensure that the friends, families, and favorites make money. So it will take a government that is prepared to do the surveys and come up with responses. I saw the vice president reacting to our recommendation to bring relief to people paying rent. And he came over as a man who is oblivious of the fact that ordinary people are finding difficulty. Sometimes he's judging from his tenant sue or his ex-tenant. Now, that is not the tenant we should be judging from. We should be judging from the average man who can't afford. And we are making it clear we're going to put mechanisms in place for people to be able to rent and own that house. And at the same time, where rent continues in private properties, etc., we will put the mechanism in place to help and to ensure that the stock of houses are developed and our people are better off. And that is why we keep saying our strategy is a people-centered strategy, while the government strategy is to provide resources for friend, family, favorite through corruption.
Thank you.
I just want to build off of that really quickly. The numbers back up what the leader is saying here, and it is amazing that the finance minister is coming out to be very proud about the fact that they are refocusing resources away from things like education. In fact, since the budget started to feature monies from oil, we've actually seen the share of the budget that is spent on education fall year after year, so that every year you have a smaller share of the budget being spent on education. Have teachers received the pay rises that they're really supposed to get with an expanded budget? Have we seen the University of Guyana's subvention increase as the budget increases? Folks, what we are seeing right now is an underinvestment in education and a focus on putting money where friends, families, and favorites can benefit. And so that is the sad situation. And you would think that us now having oil resources, we'd spend a greater proportion or meet the president's stated goal of 20%. But that was always never going to be the case, and we have not seen evidence of that so far.
Thank you. I see the hand of Mr. Dennis Shabra.
I would like to know, beyond your concerns that you raised about the sport facility in Linden, what more do you plan to do to have those addressed so that your objectives can be achieved?
So like I said in my remark, Shabral, the government has a responsibility to be honest with the people. And the House in itself requires honest response. So if a representative from a region is bringing the concerns of the people of the region in a question format, and it's regards to the Mackenzie Sports Subground, and in the question it asks if all of the sports discipline that the Mackenzie Sports Subground is known for hosting, would all of those said disciplines be played or continue to be facilitated with the new upgrade of the government's investment in the facility? And the response is yes. And then several months after, you're seeing a position that brings into question if the information that was provided in the House was indeed accurate. So the fact that the president and the Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport and several other ministers put on their Facebook page that the Mackenzie Sports Subground is being upgraded to ICC standard, which if it is okay if it is going to facilitate all of the other sports discipline. But that question is still yet to be answered, because the people would have asked after that posting, will the Mackenzie Sports Ground facilitate all of the disciplines that it once hosted? Would that still maintain? And the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, it's still yet to answer that question. Now, I would have proposed several times to the government to give serious consideration with respect to the development of sports in Region 10. Because I believe, and the evidence supports my belief, that Region 10 is the hub for athletic prowess in this country. We are the talent basket of Guyana. And I would have said to the government's representative to have a three-dimensional development posture towards the development of the sports, the different sports discipline in Region 10. I said most of the athletes in Region 10 comes from Wisma. So the argument for the synthetic track was ideal and supreme. And the location of it is going to cater for the entire Wisma community. The Mackenzie Sports Subground being a multi-purpose facility, it will cater for the Central Mackenzie, Spikeland, and all of the community that embodies Central Mackenzie. And I said to them, just upgrade the Mackenzie Sports Subground, put some additional seating, better lighting, fix the washroom, and ensure that it has an upgraded 21st century standard to facilitate all of the disciplines that it once held. And put another multi-purpose facility in Amelia's ward, somewhere around Millie's hideout area, because Amelia's ward is touted as the largest housing scheme in the Caribbean, and it continues to grow. The government is boasting about putting 1,000 houses in Amelia's ward. So the fact that the population will continue to grow and there's no proper sporting facility there, then you can put a multi-purpose facility in Millie's hideout, where parking wouldn't be an issue as it is at Mackenzie Sports Subground when they have major activities there. Put it in Millie's hideout, it will cater for the scores of young people. Amelia's ward has the largest concentration of young people in one space, and they have no facility. So if they had listened to the idea and stop being political about everything, let the best ideas pan out so that the people can benefit, and put that facility there, we would not have had this question being asked here today. And it is still a question that the government has to answer, because they said in the House that it will cater for all of those disciplines. But since this posting that was placed on the page of the head of state, a lot of questions are still yet unanswered, and we have asked for the minister with responsibility for culture, youth, and sport to provide the nation and more so the people of Region 10 with the answers to those questions. Because we maintain that the Mackenzie Sports Club ground is going to be the people's club. And we welcome the development, but the people of Linden will continue to manage the affairs of the Mackenzie Sports Club ground. But we need clarity with regards to the disciplines it once hold and the statement that the president and the ministers would have put out.
Also, some manifestation of dishonesty.
Yeah, but what I want to find from you, sir, is beyond your calls, what more can you do to potentially achieve your objective? To get the minister to answer the questions, to ensure that the project satisfies your requirements based on your experience and knowledge of the community of Linden.
Mr. Shibral, the minister should know that he is an elected servant of the people. And it is the people's request government are to satisfy. And the people of Region 10 is saying unequivocally that these are the things that we want. It is taxpayers' money that funds all of the government's developmental work. It is the people who have to pay those loans and all of the debt the government incurs. And if the people is saying to the government of the day, this is what we want from our elected servants, what more can I do? We intend to bring awareness, greater awareness to the people of Region 10 with regards to the dishonesty of what we believe is being put to the people of Linden, because you're saying one thing in the house and out of the house you're saying something else. So we will bring this awareness to them, and we will continue to demand that the will of the people be respected. This is a demand from the people to the elected officials, that this is what we want. This is what we are known for. And it is what we are best at is athletics. And it is because of our prowess in athletics, Ghana was being able to feature on the international platform receiving medals. And we're saying, respect the will of the people and honor what the people are asking. We're not asking for something out of the box. The government has the resources to satisfy the needs of the people of Ghana, but their posture suggests that they're least concerned with the demands and the wishes of the people. So the government has to answer that question.
Let me say this to you, Dennis. I have witnessed the consistent questioning as to what we will do. We have heard many people say that you need to do X, Y, and Z.
You're not hearing you.
You're not hearing me?
Hearing you now, sir.
Yeah. We are going to continue to engage the people of Region 10, and whatever the people of Region 10 directly do us to do, we will do. I also want to make the point that this whole thing is clearly a case again of the government being dishonest. When the government first spoke of the project, the question of ownership of the ground was never in question. It was the government that was saying to engage the international financier, if I recall clearly, they had to show ownership. And I assume in their own dishonest approach, they put in the document that they owned it. Of course, I don't see Londoners running to tell the world, don't get them because we own it. If they lie, they must face their lie. But the reality is it is owned by the people of Linden, and the people of Linden should determine what happens at Mackenzie Sports Club. May I also add, well, the coalition government in the direction of sport was going to do some of what Mr. Figueres said, but also on the cards was an Olympic-sized swimming pool, because Linden also produced swimmers. I think in the last 2 or 3 Olympics, whoever qualified from Linden. And there is a lot of space in Linden that an Olympic-sized swimming pool can be placed to allow people to develop their skills and be able to represent Guyana. And so I will urge the government to consider putting an Olympic-sized swimming pool with all the amenities in Region 10 so that we can realize the potential of Region 10 in swimming as well.
Thank you. Any other questions on the press statement?
I have a question, and another question, please. Mr. Norton, at your recent meeting in our Boystown, you forecast early elections. Could you give us an idea of your preparation so far by your party and the coalition on the APNU for those early elections?
Mr. Shabral,
No, let me answer it. Let me answer it. I mean, we know we want to deal with this first, but let me answer it.
Oh, my apologies. Go ahead if you have to deal with this.
We have been preparing for local government, for elections generally from day one. We have done a lot of work on the ground. You will notice whenever we are on the ground, the next time the PPP comes out with some story, regardless of what, we will continue to be on the ground. We'll continue to work with our members and supporters and to go into other areas to ensure we sensitize people and prepare Guyana for a new government.
Thank you.
Mr. Norton, follow-up. How do those preparations impact on the holding of the next party's Congress in line of its stipulated schedule? Would you have, for instance, to delay the holding of Congress, or would you be going ahead with the Congress schedule?
Those are decisions the party will make.
Is there a time frame when those decisions are expected?
Our party traditionally holds Congress in August. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, we held it in December. I believe the intention is to put it back to August. And so the first August, I think, at the end of the biennium is when Congress will be held.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions generally, since we've already stepped out of the press statement?
Svetlana Marshall again. Could I pose a question?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Mr. Figueroa, Region 10 again. Have you been able to visit the Bamia Primary School that should be built or in progress, to give us an update as to what is really happening? Have you been able to speak with the RU or any the contractor itself, or even the government, to have an understanding as to what are the major issues that are causing the delay in the execution of that particular project? I think it is scheduled to be completed later this year, mid this year. I stand corrected.
Thank you, Svetlana. The school is slated to be completed July 6th based on the contract that was inked. But on my recent visit, as of this week, actually, you would be shocked to know that the contract supposed to be completed July 6th is at a stalemate. What was shocking is that I'm told that one of the signees to the contract said that one of the issues they're being faced with is having access to sand, which is amazing because Region 10 is in the hilly sand and clay natural region. So sand is a non-issue for residents of Region 10. All over you could go and get white sand. So for one of the part owners of the contract to make such a ridiculous statement brings into question the seriousness of them, and more so by extension the government in completing this school. And if the residents and the people of Region 10, the young people in particular, who should have been benefiting from the opening of that school in September of this year, brings into question what is it primarily the Ministry of Education is doing to ensure that our young people have the accommodation that is required. Because a lot of the schools in Linden are overcrowded based on the recommended amount of students per teacher. We have a lot of overcrowded classrooms. So definitely the completion of this school would aid in addressing that issue. So we would trust that a more proactive approach would be taken by government. I read most recently the minister was in Madia and threatened to pull back a contract from a contractor who was given a road to be built. I'm not advocating for any contract to be pulled from any person who would have successfully won a contract. But if they have shown their inability to complete a contract that is of utmost importance as this one with regards to young people having a facility that they could go and learn, then another look at that should be done in a serious approach to get it completed in a time that the contract requires it to be completed. Because education, as we all would agree, is important to the development of a country. And this approach definitely brings into question the government's seriousness with regards to education.
Additionally, it should be noted from the outset, we pointed out that you were given a contract to persons who really weren't capable of undertaking the contract. There are many people in Linden, contractors, who could carry out such a contract, but you give it to people who didn't have experience nor the capacity to carry out the contract. That's the first problem. Second, I don't see how this school will solve the overcrowding problem in the region, though it is touted to do so. Let me say what I think the school will do. One, it might be able to take off some of the crowd from Amelia's ward. But what that will do is put an additional cost to children in Amelia's ward going to school. Now, I believe Bami on the highway needs a school. But the school should be built to suit the population size with probably a projection for an increase. And you really need to build in the Amelia's ward area a school to take off some of the children. In Wisma, another school to take off children so that you reduce the overcrowding in schools. This government, I've always argued, they flick and they hope they can land on their foot, but a lot of times they land on their head. And in their approach to building schools and education in Linden, you're seeing an absence of planning, because they should look at where there is the cramped population. And having done that, look at suitable locations. Because when you take children from the cramped areas in a society that is relatively depressed, and now you're adding to the parents finding passage for them to go to school, you are generating problems more than solving problems. The critical issue of understanding where the children are, which is the best place to put them, in which communities, are the critical issues that have got to be addressed. And we do not see the Ministry of Education operating in that way. This contract to me is just another attempt to give friends and cronies resources from the government.
Thank you. Mr. Adam Harris.
Sorry, this one again is outside of the press statement.
You can go ahead.
Sir, it was made clear that we are using 2 more magistrates. The chief magistrate reportedly has proceeded on her retirement leave. We were already short of judges in the Court of Appeal, we were short of judges in the High Court. And we still don't have a judicial service commission, sir. One that was promised more than a year ago. Sir, is there anything that the opposition could do to ensure that the judiciary doesn't collapse? Because there are many court cases with the shortage of magistrates and judges. Some of these cases would be for the stall.
we are prepared to do anything within the confines of the law. What we are not prepared to do is allow the government to impose party hacks and people who are not prepared to ensure we have a functioning justice system. You are aware that when I became leader, I said to the government, we agree for the present acting chancellor to become chancellor. We agree to the present chief justice to become confirmed as chief justice. In the arrogance of the government, they responded saying the president will decide when he do what he wants. I believe this question is best directed to the president.
A quick follow-up, sir.
Go ahead.
Isn't there supposed to be a ruling on this matter very soon? Justice Young, I think, announced that the ruling is due.
So I understand.
Thank you. Mr. Chabra?
Mr. Norton, as it stands now, which are the bipartisan parliamentary committees that are now under the opposition's chairmanship? And when will they actually be meeting? When will the meeting be called?
I cannot give you details. I know there was some confusion about the government having to hand over to the opposition. So many of them have not been able to meet. In fact, I have somebody checking to see, because if I recall, when the government was chairing, like the Foreign Affairs Committee, while I was the opposition head, I don't recall us having to wait on the government, but to be very cautious, I've asked that it be checked so we know if we can just proceed and take over those committees or we have to wait for a handover. And so it's very difficult for me to give you details because they're at various stages.
Thank you. All right. As we are...
Adam, if I can. Mr. Your question to the leader of the opposition with regards to what else can we do concerning the Judicial Service Commission not being implemented. One of the things the opposition is prepared to do with the leader's guidance, of course, is to bring motions to the parliament. But the parliament seldomly meets. You meet like an eclipse. So a lot of the questions that the people of Ghana expect us to present to the House, it is seldomly being put because you seldomly meet as a parliament. The motions that we have tabled, it cannot come to the light of day because you have parliament probably once every 2 months or 3 months. This is the most inactive parliament in all of CARICOM, and it's unacceptable. So when we prepare questions based on the relevance of it at the time, for a response to be tabled, the questions become irrelevant with the passage of time and the length of time Parliament takes to be called. So questions that should have been answered, for example, we have questions on the issue of the Carifta Games. It would become irrelevant because next 2-3 months when you get Parliament, it comes on the order paper. So things that are of pressing issues to the public becomes irrelevant because of the non-active parliament that the government is facilitating. So a lot of the things we want to do becomes, you're somewhat handicapped because the parliamentary arena that helps to bring the representation on behalf of the people, you're being stymied at another level. Just now I received a message from a staff of the parliament to say that we won't be having a Public Accounts Committee meeting anymore on Monday because the government members on the Public Accounts Committee would be unavailable. And when we argued, when they brought this motion, that this is the plan of the government to stymie the work of the Public Accounts Committee, they argued against what we were saying. But the evidence today justified what we were saying all along. And yet again, we're seeing the continuation of what we would have said. With this, another suspension of a statutory meeting of the Public Accounts Committee. Millions of dollars are being spent, and the Public Accounts Committee, the people of Ghana have questions, and the Public Accounts Committee is unable to ask those questions on their behalf, so that transparency, accountability, and good governance would emanate out of the process is being stymied, deliberately being stymied by operatives of the government.
Thank you. All right, as we come to a close, I will ask once more, is there any final questions? All right. With no hands raised, I want to thank you once again for joining our press conference, and we do hope that you have a wonderful afternoon.
Recording stopped.